Hey guys, this is Kapow, comics, cartoons and collectibles. I'm Sonia.
And I'm Al, and you know what, just for a change, here we are at King's Comics.
Just like every other week, really?
Yes, there's not so much of a change.
No. Okay, let's have a look at this week's list, shall we?
There's a list?
I made a list.
Put a pair of glasses on, you start making lists.
Shh. Alright, this week we are looking at Choker as well as Four Eyes.
I didn't say anything. Now, it's also past time that we look at Before Watchmen.
Which ties in quite nicely considering how Ray is having a look at some of the Watchmen collectibles that are available now.
That works out perfectly.
It's like we planned it.
Isn't it?
I know.
All right, well, you know what? Let's get right into it. Let's look at Before Watchmen.
No, let's do that then.
Scoot. Go.
Scoot me.
Go. Now, when I first heard that there were going to be a series of prequel comics that were going to be a new take on Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons' Watchmen series, I had mixed feelings.
Mixed feelings. Your exact words were, "Oh my god, I can't believe they're doing this, it's going to be a tragedy."
Okay, well, maybe my feelings weren't that mixed.
No.
And honestly, I'm pretty sure I said travesty.
Yes, and it's also very well founded. I mean,
think so.
This is Watchmen, for goodness sake. I mean, it's held up by many, myself included, as one of the greatest graphic novels of all time.
Yeah, exactly.
So you get a bunch of new writers and new artists to come in and reinterpret Moore and Gibbons' work. That's going to be risky.
Yeah, but it's a gamble that DC thought was worth taking.
True.
Now, we wanted to wait until there were a few of these out on the shelves before we actually looked at them. And there still is Rorschach and Dr. Manhattan.
Yep.
Don't come out until August. But you know what? We couldn't wait any longer.
We couldn't. But a quick proviso before we wade on into this. We're going to be harsh.
We have to be.
We have to be.
Yeah.
Like I said, this is Watchmen. They don't just have to be a good story, they have to be worthwhile. And that is the Watchmen watchword.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to do
That's
that.
what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
If they don't bring anything new to the table, honestly, what's their point?
We pretty much have to hold them up to that.
We
It's
do.
True. So, without any further ado, let's look at Minuteman.
Yes.
Now, this has been written and has art by Darwin Cook.
I love that name.
Yeah, how can you not? It's very awesome. Now, even Alan Moore back in 1985 said that the Minutemen, the 1940s supergroup Minutemen, were an area that he could have written some more content
Yeah.
on. So I had some pretty high expectations for this one.
And were they justified out?
Oddly enough, they were.
Goodness.
I really enjoyed Minutemen.
Actually, so did I.
Yeah?
I really liked it
Yeah.
as well. And looking at Darwin Cook's artwork in this is kind of like watching an episode of Batman the Animated Series.
Yeah.
It's that same kind of feel, and it works perfectly for Minutemen because it's set in that golden age period of
Yeah.
the 1940s, so it works really beautifully.
Yeah, it really does. And you know what? It seems so weird to start off saying we're going to be really hard on these comics
We love
and
it.
then just lead in with one that we think is awesome.
It's true.
But this is the sort of content that I wanted more of when I was reading the original Watchmen. I mean, I want to know more about these characters, Hooded Justice and Silhouette and the original Night Owl. Those
Yeah.
ones I wanted to hear
I
about.
mean, it is really exciting being able to read their adventures. I mean, like you said, they weren't really fleshed out in the original
Not really,
Watchmen,
no.
so it's new territory for us. And as morbid as this sounds,
Yeah.
I'm really keen to see how they all pretty much end up in tragedy, because we all know how
They
they
almost
finish
all
up.
do, don't
yeah.
they? It's
So
true.
I'm really looking forward to seeing that story arc that gets them to that
Yeah.
final dark place.
I
know it's kinda morbid,
That is
but-
kind of morbid. But yeah, I agree. It's going to be great. We haven't really got into their adventures yet, though.
No.
I mean, we're really just seeing a 2-page spread that introduces them
Each of the
in
characters,
this one. We
that's
haven't
right.
got into the meat of it yet. But, you know, I'm definitely going to keep reading this one. This one's a buy.
Yeah, it's a buy from me as well. Okay, on to the next one,
Ah.
which is The Silk Spectre. Co-written by Darwin Cook and Amanda Connor, with art by Amanda Connor. This follows the second Silk Spectre, Laurie Jupiter.
Yes. Now, what did you think of this one?
Not much really happens
That's
in
true.
this first
Yeah.
one. I mean, it is really well written and it is really well illustrated. But I gotta say, Silk Spectre wasn't a character that I really kind of connected with in the original Watchmen. I
Yeah.
found her kind of annoying and whiny.
Yeah.
Very whiny. So the idea of reading a series about her in her teenage rebellious years, not really appealing to me.
I know, but this is just the first one. Something interesting has got to happen that's going to drag her back to crime fighting like her mother wants it to.
Absolutely. I did really love the use of the song lyrics as a storytelling device in
Yeah.
this as well. It weaves through all the panels, and I did find myself singing or humming the songs that were in there.
It's an interesting effect.
Yeah, it's like I had a soundtrack to the comic book.
Yeah.
But it comes down to holding it up to that higher level. Like, is it worthwhile?
Yeah, well, that's the question, isn't it? And, you know, honestly, I mean, it would have been a bit weird if they hadn't given her standalone,
It's
because
true.
all the other newer generation heroes got their own, you know, solo effort, so they had to give her one as well. But honestly, from a story standpoint, like you said, I didn't get that much from this one.
Yeah, and unlike Minutemen that has a 6-issue run, Silk Spectre is only doing 4. Now, I would have thought that Cook and Connor would have gotten into the meat of the story quicker, seeing as that it's only 4 issues. That was
true.
quite strange. But I am still going to give this one a borrow, but mainly because I have such faith in the writing team.
Okay, well, you know what? Like I said, I didn't get that much from this story-wise. It is well written, the dialogue works, it's well illustrated, but I don't really care about Laurie. Hers was never a story I was interested in seeing more of, so I'm gonna have to go with the higher standard and say I'm gonna bury this one.
Fair enough.
Okay, moving on.
Moving on indeed. Brian Azzarello is writing the 6-issue series of Comedian with art with J.G. Jones. And as a title, this certainly had somewhere to go.
Yeah, well, I mean, we all know Eddie Blake. He has his shady government connections.
Indeed.
He's got his time in Vietnam. There's plenty of places this story can go that'd be quite interesting, but you know what? I really didn't get much out of this one, and I hate to say that about an Azzarello pen title.
I know, we like Azzarello.
We do.
We really like him. But the fact is, we know Eddie Blake did wet work for the Kennedys.
Yeah.
We know that he's slightly unhinged and a little unpredictable. We know all of this. What we don't know is how he got there.
Well, yeah, but we're gonna see his backstory in Minutemen, so it can't really
True.
double tell that. But yeah, I know what you're saying. I mean, we got a lot of his backstory even in the original Watchmen.
Exactly.
It's possible this character is just a bit tapped out.
It's back to the worthwhile thing. So, are you going to keep reading this?
Probably not.
So Barry?
I guess it has to be.
Sorry, Azzarello.
All right, moving on.
Moving on.
Night Owl, written by J. Michael Straczynski, with art by Joe and Andy Kubert.
Love the team.
Always a great team up.
Always.
Now, with this one, it's going to have a lot of pressure on it.
Yeah.
I mean, Dan Dryberg, the second Night Owl, he got a lot of page time in
did.
the original. So there's going to be, you know, is the character tapped out? This is going to have a lot of pressure on it.
Well, I do know for a fact that this is going to have a lot of what you are looking for. Oh, what is this? What? I don't know. Maybe Night Owl and Rorschach teaming up and beating up bad guys?
Okay, guilty.
Yeah.
That was the one area where I was actually like, okay, maybe some prequel to the Watchmen would be okay. Because I want to see that. There's that single frame in the original Watchmen where
Yeah.
you see Rorschach and Night Owl in 1965,
Yeah.
and they're facing off against a bunch of goons. That's what I wanted to see. A whole series based on that.
Personally, I would have preferred to have seen more of Dan's early days training with the original Night Owl. That, you know, early model Archimedes. That would have been awesome. But this comic just glosses over it.
Well, yeah, but you know what? This is only a 4-issue run. You gotta get into the goon punching. You gotta move on to that as quickly as possible. That's what you want.
Really?
Okay, look, I'll be entirely honest. This one didn't knock my socks off.
Right.
But I still think it has some fun places to go. I'm still giving it a borrow.
I think you're just fixated on goon punching, personally.
You guys are with me?
This didn't give me what I wanted from this title, so it's a berry from me. Harsh, but come on now.
Okay, no, I know. We said this up front. We were going to be
did.
doing this. Now,
Yep.
that finally takes us to Ozymandias.
Yes.
Now, this is a 6-issue series. It's being written by Len Wein with art by Jay Lee. Now, this, more than any of the others, surprised me. This title really surprised me.
Oh, yes, the art in this.
It's
It is
brilliant.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
I have loved Lee's work ever since I saw him do Batman, Jekyll and Hyde.
Yes,
That was
yeah.
amazing. But
That was
he,
awesome.
honestly, it's up another notch in this.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
And story-wise as well, I'd never even thought how fascinating Adrian Veidt would be as
Yeah.
a character until he just started, you know, we see his backstory, we see some of his early years unearthed. Fascinating stuff.
It really is.
I loved it. Look, maybe even more so than Minutemen, this one has me quite excited. This one I'm definitely going to keep reading. Big old bite.
Big
for this
old
one.
bite. Yeah, the story in this, the artwork, like I said, is phenomenal. I would literally put all of them on my wall.
Yeah,
they are that good.
That one where he's at his parents' grave.
It's so
Amazing.
beautifully
Yeah.
done. This was a big surprise, and honestly, no ifs, buts, or whys, or what fors about it. For me, this is the biggest buy of the ones that we have read. Honestly, it is. It is that good. I highly recommend that one.
All
Yeah.
right. Now, it's also worth mentioning, at the end of all of these, there's a 2-page spread, The Curse of the Crimson Corsair.
Yes.
Now, this is a companion piece to Tales of the Black Freighter from Watchmen. Now this is going to be serialized across all of these Before Watchmen titles, so if you want to read the whole story, you're going to have to buy every single one, which is a bit irritating, but it's a pretty good sales play.
Well, yeah, kudos to the salespeople on that one.
You know what? Hopefully they'll release it as a single volume.
It will be nice.
After everything else, you know, because it's written by Jay Lee, so it's
pretty cool.
It's good stuff. It's worth a read.
It is. Now, that's just our opinions on these Before Watchmen.
Yeah.
And we have prepared ourselves,
We've girded ourselves.
that people are going to disagree with us. Maybe you do agree with us. We don't know, but we're all good.
We're ready for it. Yeah.
But we do have a special guest to join us here at Kapow. We have Scott, who's from King's Comics. And so, Before the Watchmen, Scott, how's it been going in here?
Yeah, has it been selling?
Has it been
What's
selling?
been happening?
Yeah, well, it has been really well received with our readers.
Mm-hmm.
It's you know, as an event, it's attracted a really astonishing amount of attention.
Yeah.
So. Look, it's I've enjoyed almost every issue, really, every series so far. Yeah. I am one of those people that did want to see further stories with the characters and enjoyed the book so much.
Yeah, awesome. And people have got to be a bit polarized on this. You know, people are either going to like it or loathe it.
Yeah,
I gotta imagine. Have you been seeing a lot of that from people who've been coming in?
Yeah, a little bit. Really, you know, some readers are abstaining from it altogether, really.
Wow.
Otherwise, you know, everyone is picking up an issue here and there. But the people that are abstaining, I guess, they're a little worried with the storytelling that if you the writers attempted to take events from Watchmen, then you know, you're running the risk of probably instantly comparing yourself to Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons. So,
no one really wants to do that.
Yeah, so maybe they should have been all new stories, but really contrary to that, I think everybody wanted to see sort of, you know, further stories or backgrounds on their favourite characters. So,
have there been any that have been really shining out for you? Anything that you thought has been the best?
Well, they got cracking straight away with Minutemen. Darwin Cook, I mean, there's no shortage of creative talent across all these books.
Yeah.
It's very, very good. No, I think all the creative teams sort of reflect the character a little bit in a way. So you know, some people are either reading maybe just something about their favourite character, but most people are picking up everything across the board. So it's been very well received.
With the Crimson Corsair, you know, it
But
makes it
you've
worth
got
your
to.
while to get them all, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. And that was actually one of my favourite parts of Watchmen was flicking through to the Crimson Corsair.
It was so good. It was just such a nice little.
So yeah, there is always that sort of thing with comics sometimes, stories crossing over one another. But look, it's been really, really good so far, and you know, we'll see as further characters and the series expand. It'll be I think it'll be something that maybe people aren't grabbing straight away, but it will be something they will need further down the line. Yeah, that's how the readers.
There's got to be some trades coming out later, and there's
exactly.
going to be a lot of property when they do.
Yeah. But I'm sure people will want to read it in its entirety after that.
Yeah, there's some we ripped on, but we'll probably want to
We'll
read them all
still
anyway.
read them all. We will read them all.
Let's see how they go.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Scott, for coming on board and having a chat with us about Before Watchmen.
No, thanks a lot. Thanks for having me on the show. That's excellent. Thank you.
So, Ray, what have you got for us today?
Well, I saw you and Al talking about Watchmen, and I thought, well, I'd show you what I have found.
Cool.
Some Watchmen collectibles. I've got quite a bit to show you, so... All right, we'll start
Let's
with the 6th scale figure. This isn't the action figures, which you could mistake them for. They're a bit more, they're crudely constructed. They've got 8 points of articulation, which is quite nice, but they're a bit more of a toy.
Right.
This here is the DC Direct Deluxe figure.
Cool.
So a lot more detail. Just open them up here. So you've got, you know, a different kind of handset that you can, you know, attach and have them in a different pose. He comes in a suit that isn't sort of just painted on or anything. It's actual material which you can, you know, take off or put on, I guess.
You can take your suit off.
Yeah, you can.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, so you can see him in his...
Full blue glory.
Yeah, full blue glory. So yes, I quite like these figures, highly detailed. I really like the detail around the eye and the face. That's quite nice. The head looks a little small, but still. Yeah, it comes in a nice packaging as well. What I don't like so much is they don't stand on their own too well. They need the stand, and I would have liked them to sort of stand on their own a bit more and more poses. So yeah, it's really going to be a bit more of a borrow from me, this one.
Yeah, and I mean, Manhattan himself doesn't come with a lot of kind of accessories. That
No,
you get
that's
from
right.
others. He has some hands,
And that's about
and that's about it. And a
Yeah.
removable suit.
Whereas, you know, Rorschach comes with his, you know, tools and weapons and...
That'd be pretty cool, the others.
yeah, I
The
think...
other bits and pieces.
Yeah, a bit more posable, I think. And
I'm going to give Dr. Manhattan a borrow as well.
a borrow as well?
Yeah.
All right.
He's cool, but not cool enough.
All right. Yeah, I agree. But let's move on to something else a bit different.
Yep.
Smaller in scale. Okay, what we have here are our Watchmen busts.
They're pretty cool.
They're very cool. They're a lot smaller, of course, but the detail, I think, is finer, and they have a good amount of weight to them too. It almost feels like your own Watchmen Oscar that you could hold up. Reward yourself. But I really like the paintwork on these as well. And the detail as well. It's quite fine. It's not broad strokes either. There is some, they've used a finer brush to groove out a little bit more detail, make it a bit more 3D element to that. And the colors themselves reflect that of the film and the comic.
Indeed.
And yeah, it's a good fresh sort of look. What I really like as well, on the back of each of them, they all have a different time on the clock, of course.
I didn't notice that before.
Yeah, quite
That's very
nice.
cool.
I don't like all of the figures though.
Yeah.
Yeah, they all stand in quite a stoic pose, which is
Yeah.
nice, but something like this, the comedian, I didn't quite warm to. I thought that the colors were a little loud compared to the others.
Yep.
You know, maybe that's what his style is, but for me, even the facial construction as well, it's a little bit off. So yeah, I'm gonna have to give it a borrow because only some of the figures I like.
Okay, well, I don't mind that the comedian's a little bit different to the others because he is kind of separate to the rest of the Watchmen. He kind of stands on his own kind of thing.
Okay.
I love the detailing on these, especially on Night Owl. I think he's pretty amazingly
Especially,
detailed.
yeah,
All the
on that-
feathering
the
on
feathering,
there.
yeah,
it's
it's nice.
very cool.
Nice
Plus,
touch.
all of them together, I think, would make a really cool kind of display on your bookshelf.
Yeah,
so,
that's the thing with busts. I think,
Yeah,
yeah,
put 'em
sometimes
all
when you get the
together.
whole collection, they can look superb.
yeah,
but,
so I'm going to give them a buy.
Okay.
I think they're pretty cool.
All right.
Very cool.
Well, let's move on to something very different.
Yes.
It's Hero Clicks.
I have it over here.
You have it?
I do.
Sweet.
at
I'll
that.
move these guys out of the way.
Can't open it though. There we go.
That's a bit of a trick. Hero Clicks. Okay, tiny little figures, but surprisingly very detailed. They haven't been out for very long. They came out in 2002 by WizKids, and they're now owned by NECA. Now they make some really good collectibles, usually more game orientated, but they're starting to, you know, branch out a little bit more. These guys are they're not just little collectibles, they're a bit more than that. They're also a game based on the Mage Knights system. So at the base, they all have a dial which has various sort of count system on it, which there's speed, there's attack, there's defense, damage, range, point, and rarity.
Right.
So they're all the stats that basically make up your figures. So when these figures encounter each other on the board, they incur damage, which then allows, what happens is you move your dial at the base, it clicks, clockwise, and then it basically reveals the corresponding damage that that figure has incurred. So yeah,
pretty cool.
that's the basics of them. There's a lot of rules surrounding it and different styles of play. But yeah, so that's Hero Clicks, which is really cool.
It's pretty cool. Now, I've never played myself, but I have seen some of the maps that they play on. They are so elaborate.
Yeah,
That's so amazing.
Yeah.
Like, you could just play in that. That would be fine. I don't need to play
Helicopters
the
and
game.
buildings, they build them, and yeah.
It's really cool. I love
Yeah.
the fact that these aren't just figures, but they're also toys. Like, you can display them or you can play with them. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool. And
Yeah.
the box that they come in is really... It's
a nice collector's box.
Nice display box.
Yeah, absolutely.
The amount of detail on them is pretty impressive as well, I think, for such tiny figures.
I thought so as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Surprisingly so.
Yeah.
Yes. So, what do you rate this?
I am going to give this one a buy. I think it's unusual as well. Well, I've never seen anything like this before. I'm out of the Hero Clicks world.
I'm going to give it a buy as well.
Yay.
Because, look, you know, in this day and age, you know, interactive entertainment's mainly dominated by games,
That's
and
true.
I think this is a different way of interacting with your friends, plus sharing the collectibles, you know, that you like, and interacting with those characters you really love.
Yeah.
A bit more of a face-to-face value. I really rate this highly. So yeah, big buy from me.
Big buy. Awesome.
All right, but in true Kapow style,
Yes?
we do have a bit of a reveal.
Exciting.
to-
I'm gonna get rid of HeroClix.
All right.
Come over here, HeroClix.
Cue music.
Ah.
Yeah, cue. Ah, here it is. All right.
Look at him.
Okay. So of course we have Night Owl's ship, or otherwise known as.
Archimedes.
Absolutely. This figure here is, well, it's top shelf. It's very heavy.
It's
made
really
from-
heavy.
Yeah. Made from polystone resin. It's all hand carved, hand painted. Again, as I said, you're looking at top shelf material here. There's a lot of finer detail in the metal work. They've done some scratching away here and edging away, make it seem worn or, you know,
Battle worn.
battle worn. That's right.
Yes.
Even just some of the detail on the tracks and everything else that it sits on. The painting, how they've named it as well. Yeah. There's a lot of fine detail, a lot of fine brush strokes going into this figure.
Yeah.
The
Spin him around.
spin him around as well. This is probably my favorite part here. The eyes or windows to the ship, but it's not for me.
Really?
No.
But you said so many nice things about Archimedes.
I know, but it just seems so static. I just, personally, I prefer a figure.
Yep.
They seem to draw you in more or tell a bit more of a story. For this, I don't know, with vehicles, for me, I want to see them moving or in motion, and it just seems, it's docked, that's it, that's the ship. So for me, it's only going to be a borrow.
Oh goodness, see, I love this. I think this is really cool. I'm not usually one for vehicles, but Archimedes is a character in himself, or herself. It's a ship, it should be a girl.
Yes.
I love
It
the
should be.
I love the fact that you mentioned that the scraping at the front here to show that it has been in battle.
Yeah.
The gravel work underneath the tracks
true,
here is really cool.
Yeah.
Plus, Ray, come on now, if you put your busts with him, especially Night Owl, come on. That's awesome.
Okay.
Look at that.
All right. Yep. I can see that does
Yes.
look very cool. If you had the whole
The
collection.
whole collection and Archimedes. It's a buy from me. I love this. I think that's awesome.
All right. Bye. I say borrow.
You say borrow? No weirdness this weekend?
Nope.
No?
No.
Nothing
None at all.
Oh. Okay. Bye, Ray. Four Eyes is an Image published title that has a very interesting genre mashup, doesn't it? It's a Depression era New York with dragons, which is kind of an interesting concept, really,
Well, it's
isn't it?
certainly not one that would have occurred to
No.
me. Joe Kelly, who wrote it, he has this big history in superhero comics.
Yes.
You know, Daredevil, Deadpool, Spider-Man, Superman,
JLA.
JLA, X-Men. He's done it all, really. And to see this, it's quite a departure for him in this story.
It is. Now, the story follows Enrico, a young boy who gets plunged into the world of dragon hunting after the death of his father, who was also a dragon hunter.
Sure.
So the dragons get hunted and stolen as babies or eggs, where they're then trained to fight in massive tournaments as a blood sport. Now, come on, dragons fighting. This leads to some amazing 1- and 2-page spreads.
Yeah.
And Max Fiamara's artwork in this is absolutely superb.
Yeah, well, look, I was kind of on the fence a little bit until that first double-page spread where he stumbles into the arena, sees those two dragons fighting each other, and look, the art just goes from strength to strength after that.
really does.
It's really quite impressive.
It is, and you do get this wonderful sense of the enormity of these creatures
do,
and how
yeah.
terrifying they actually are. And there's also some really beautiful dream sequences that are through this where Enrico's talking to his father.
Yeah, which is not a new idea,
No.
but certainly used to great effect here, I think.
Absolutely. Now, as far as the characters are concerned, I mean, Kelly has always written very engaging characters,
True.
and it's certainly the case in Four Eyes, from Eva, which is Enrico's mother, to Fawkes, who's the actual dragon
He's good,
trainer.
yeah.
He's a very
Yeah, I
interesting
like him.
character. Enrico himself is beautifully fleshed out. And then we have Mr. Boccione,
Yes.
who is kind of this godfatherish, legitimate businessman, who certainly has a lot of secrets to hide.
Doesn't he though? Yeah, look, near the end of this volume there are some story elements that come in that feel a little tried and tested, but you know what, it's quite a small concern when you put it next to the rest of the storytelling.
Yeah, it is. You kind of read it and you go, nah, I see where you're going here. But it is just speculation. I mean, this is just volume 1, and
Sure.
it does end on a bit of a
Yeah.
moment.
So we may be
who
wrong.
knows? It could be aliens.
It's not going to be aliens.
It's dragons.
It's dragons.
Okay.
Yeah. Look, ultimately, this one is going to be a buy for me. It's definitely going to be a buy. It's, as you say, it's got the great compelling characters. It's well written. It moves along nicely.
It
It's got a
does.
few mysteries in there. You're
Yeah.
wondering what's going on with his father and everything like that.
Indeed.
So, and as I say, the artwork.
It's just
especially
beautiful.
those big spreads. fantastic. So look, this is definitely a buy from me.
Yeah, I actually had quite an emotional response to this book as well. I really felt for the characters within this. Whether that's Kelly's text or the art, I'm not sure.
Or
but
the fact that you had a dragon when you were a child, maybe.
Betsy.
Ah, Betsy.
We'll talk about it. Anyway, I really did feel for these characters, and I did care about what happened to them.
Sure.
So this is a dragon-sized buy from me.
Wow, dragon-sized.
Dragon-sized buy.
That's impressive.
It's huge.
That's right, it's time for another episode of Ask Kapow! Dum-dum-dum-dum.
Is that what we're doing?
I think we'll get a theme tune. It'll be a thing.
Anyway, first question tonight comes from Jonah Marinan. From Twitter, he goes, "Hey guys, love the show. My question is, can you recommend to me any good steampunk or dieselpunk comic books?" And he's #Kapowian.
Nice.
It's fantastic.
Do that
I
every
love it.
time.
Absolutely. Now, steampunk or dieselpunk, cyberpunk, gaslamp fantasy, it's such a huge genre now with lots and lots of little kind of spin-offs.
And offshoots.
So
Yeah.
huge. There are a lot of titles that you can look at. There are classics like Brian Talbot's The Adventures of Luther Arkwright, which many see as kind of the stepping off point into modern day steampunk, and it is pretty awesome. And incidentally, in 2005, it was made into an audiobook with David Tennant playing Luther Arkwright.
Do you like David
Which
Tennant?
is very cool. There's also, of course, Alan Moore and Kevin O'Neill's League of Extraordinary Gentlemen.
Of course.
Goes into that classic kind of thing. But there are a few other titles that I think you should take a look at, such as Lady Mechanica by Joe Benitez, which is one of my favourites. It's a little dark, but it's so beautifully done. If you want something a little light-hearted, check out Girl Genius, which is both online and serial. It's written and illustrated by Phil and Kaya Folio.
Hard to find the light-hearted in steampunk sometimes, isn't it?
Well, it is dystopian.
That's true. Yeah, by its very nature.
Yeah, that's why Girl Genius is pretty good.
Yeah. Okay.
Gives
Cool.
you another look. But I also highly recommend having a look at Grandville, which is also by Brian Talbot. Now, this has been described as Rupert the Bear meets Tintin by way of Kill Bill, with a healthy dose of conspiracy. So,
Hard
come
to
on.
Picture. Yeah.
But
it does sound awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Now, there are so many more titles. I could quite literally go on and on and on and on
But
and
don't.
on. But I won't. But I could put on Facebook Sonia's top 10 steampunk titles, which I may get onto.
Yeah, why
Oh,
not?
but quickly before we go, sorry.
Go on.
Before you carry on, I have to mention The Clockwork Girl by Sean O'Reilly and Kevin Hanna. It is absolutely beautiful. It's kind of a steampunk Romeo and Juliet, and it's definitely a look.
Okay, well, that sounds great. Now, our next question comes from Karen Billhutz.
Hi, Karen.
An old friend of Kapow. And her question is, how does the show get made every week? Who writes the material? Well, Karen, you should know better than most how the show gets made since we interviewed you in season 1. But, you know, it's actually a pretty straightforward process.
It is.
First, we start by selecting the comics or collectibles that we're going to be reviewing that week. After that, we read or test out, in Ray's case, the different materials so that we can make an evaluation. Then we get together to share a reasonable and respectful exchange of ideas on what we thought of the material. And Ray writes the first draft of his review and then consults Sonia for her input. But Sonia and I actually write our reviews together as a team.
Team.
Yeah.
And that's how
the show gets made. Thanks for asking, Kapow. Now, you've heard of a match made in heaven.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, Ben Templesmith and Ben McCool are a match made in hell, but in the best possible way. These guys were meant to make a story together, and that story is Choker. Now, we are looking at Volume 1.
Yes. Now, many of you will know Templesmith's work from 30 Days of Night.
Yep.
And so you'll be kind of familiar with his art style, the exaggerated bodies, the chaotic backgrounds, the carnage.
Seemingly
So
endless
much carnage.
Yeah.
And Choker certainly does not disappoint on any of those counts.
Certainly does not. I am really jazzed about this book. I mean, it focuses on Johnny Jackson, who is an ex-cop turned PI who lives in this semi-futuristic dystopian nightmare called Shotgun City.
It is pretty
now,
weird.
he smokes too much, he drinks too much, and he has a super strong left hand that has a mind of its own.
He does.
It's like McCool's been reading my wish list.
See, all of that sounds so cool.
Yeah.
There's very little to actually criticise about this book.
True.
And yet,
And yet what? It is awesome. What are you talking? What? What?
And yet, calm down, I couldn't get into it.
Oh.
Throughout reading this, I just felt really distanced from it. The world that Jackson lives in is so beautifully drawn and chaotic, but I just couldn't sink into it. I just felt away.
Okay, well look, I mean, I will say it takes a while to acclimatize. The more bizarre aspects of Shotgun City, they kind of caught me off guard to start with as well, but once the story kicks in, and incidentally, this is a story that features vampire cannibal junkies fighting roided up super cops.
Yeah,
Hello.
I know.
I couldn't put this one down.
Yeah, whereas I found myself constantly drifting away and daydreaming about something else. And believe me, I have bashed my head against a wall trying to work out what it was that just didn't grab me.
Is that what you were doing? I saw you were...
I have a headache
like a
from it.
budgie.
I know, but I
but
don't
it
know.
didn't help.
It didn't help. Maybe it's the fact that there's only 2 female characters and they're both nut jobs.
They are.
Maybe it's the fact that Temple Smith's backgrounds are so chaotic and imprecise that I had no sense of place. Maybe it was because there were just too many decapitations and...
No,
Nah, that's not
come
it.
on, that's always
that
awesome.
can't be it.
No.
But I don't... Well, maybe I was in the wrong headspace when I read this. I seriously have no idea.
Okay, but from the sound of things, you are going to allow that this is a very impressive piece of work.
Absolutely, I will. It's just one of those things that I don't know, I just couldn't get into it. I will pick it up again and I'll read it next week maybe, but I'm gonna give this one a borrow. It is a good book, but I have nothing.
Okay, well, you know what? This is a massive buy from me. Don't. This is a massive buy, people. Look, I love crime noir.
Yeah, you do.
That's one of my favorite areas of comic fiction. So when you layer on top of that Temple Smith's anarchic visual brilliance and McCool's dark, twisted storytelling,
I know.
I could have a new favorite on the list here. This is a massive buy from me. Go out and get it. It's brilliant.
I don't know. I have to read it again.
Yeah, read it right now.
Oh.
I'll bang your head off a wall. Maybe the threats of violence aren't the best way to go.
Well, that's it for this week, guys, but we will be back next week with a science fiction spectacular.
That is going to be pretty cool. But
will
you
be.
know what, though? It has been a long time since we've done a competition.
It has.
And that is just not right.
Do you have something planned, sir?
As it so happens, I do have something
Excellent.
planned. Now, we all know how you feel about, well, you say it, it's funnier.
Zombies.
There we go. Everybody knows how Zonya feels about zombies. But we want your top 3 zombie apocalypse survival tips.
Yes, make them as interesting, creative, or funny as you like. It'll be very entertaining for me to read all of
Sure,
these.
yeah.
Because King's Comics has given us a collection of Walking Dead issue 100 variant covers, including the very rare wrap cover and chromium cover.
That's going to be awesome.
It's
but
very cool.
you know what? We're also going to throw in a Blu-ray edition of the first season of Walking Dead.
Amazing.
Just to sweeten the pot.
yeah.
So you know what? Get on the Twitter or on the Facebook or any of those social networking sites.
Really?
And we will love to see your answers. We'll be announcing the winner on the final episode of season 2 in about 3 weeks' time.
Thanks indeed. We'll see you next week, guys.
Okay,
Bye. Really? The Twitter?
Zombie.
Don't zombie. No, don't zombie me.
Ah!